Yes, that's right. It's Joe here live for Joyrider TV, just smashing the place up. Yes, as you will be aware, we are about to embark in some more great Q&A. Yes, we've got some topics in the preloaded, all ready to go. So you may have seen that the lead question today is on the topic of getting more performance out of an F18 style catamaran on the Upwind point of sale. We're also going to be taking a look. Let's see what we're going to be taking a look at. Tethering. Yeah, we're going back to tethering. It's a good topic. Yeah, a bit of high wind. And yeah, but we're going to start off this week. Sorry, could have prepared a little bit better there, but no. All right, going to start off just by clarifying a few points on the man overboard. You may have seen the video that came earlier in the week when I was sailing with Captain Shelby. There was some 3 man overboards that were completed in pretty tight succession. And I just thought I'd explain the why of some of the aspects of these man overboard practices. So if here we are, we're sailing along. This is the wind coming from the top. And if we're sailing along and we experience, it might not be a man overboard. It might be a shoe. It might be, it could be anything. Or hat. A hat is quite regular. Shoe or a hat. So if this is our man overboard just here, so the procedure is we're just going to, as soon as we've established that we have got an overboard situation that we need to rectify, we're going to turn the boat onto a beam reach. Good idea is to loosen off the sails as well. Well, if you've been sailing upwind, maybe it's a bit windy, you're definitely going to want to loosen the sails off. And then we need to gauge how far it is that we're going to sail away from whatever it is in the water. If it's lighter wind, we don't need to sail as far. If it's stronger wind, we need to sail a bit further, because our objective is to be able to slow down enough on our approach back to the man overboard so that we're in complete control at the time when we get back there. And if we were to go too soon, then we'd be very hard pushed to slow the boat down to stop the boat. So very important also is, as we sail away, we keep looking at where the man overboard is. Now, you may think, okay, so in the video with Captain Shelby, I must have taken my eye off the ball, which I did, because at some point you have got to drive the boat as well as keep an eye on where your man overboard is. But I had multiple bogeys, so I also had a second body in the water, which was Mr. Goose, who I went on to pick up later. And and this is why my first man overboard attempt in the video went wrong, because I started aiming for the wrong body in the water. But okay, so we sail away from the man overboard, and when we feel we're far enough away, which might be 10 boat lengths, might be 20 boat lengths if it's windy, as long as you can still see them, we go for a jibe. Now, the jibe may seem counterintuitive if it's windy, because you might think, well, if I go for a jibe, there's a strong chance for capsize. If you really think there's a strong chance for capsize, let's not do that. If you're not confident enough with your jibes to be able to make them every time when it's windy, then better to tack. But the reason why we're jibing is it means we don't have to sail as far away. So by jibing, this is taking us downwind, which means we can then approach the man overboard on a close reach. The close reach is the best because, so in case you're not familiar with the term close reach, if that's our upwind, that's our beam reach. A close reach is halfway in between. And the close reach is really good because that is the point of sail where we can really control our speed just using the sails. So on the close reach, we can slow down by easing the sails out. If when we're on this approach, if we ease the sails out and we don't think we're slowing down enough, then what we need to be doing is approaching a bit more upwind. But if we just turned upwind, we'd be in the wrong place. So what we can do here is a little S, which means we'll have to, shall I do that again? So we're approaching on a close reach, not slowing down enough. So we do a little S. Are we slowing down enough when we ease the sails? No, we could do it again. And until we get to the point where when we line this hull up with the man overboard, we can really drop our speed by letting the sails out. And then what we want to do is we want to be picking the man overboard up over the windward side of the boat, not between the hulls. Between the hulls, if you weren't able to slow down, you could use your dolphin striker to strike the man overboard. They would not be impressed. Not on the leeward side, because if the man overboard needs assistance to get on the boat and perhaps it's windy, two things that might happen here. You might go to the leeward side and you might actually capsize because all of your weight's in the wrong place. Or if you imagine this man overboard being kind of like almost like a pivot point in the water here, then the boat might, if you go down to help, the boat might actually start bearing away and powering up. Whereas if you've got the man overboard as a kind of anchor just forwards of the shroud on the windward side, then when you pull them in, the boat is going to stay much more in control, settled. Another thing you can do when you get to them, just before you get to them, if you've got enough time and hands free, is just bang the downhaul off, let the jib off, and you can let the traveller out, main sheet off, so that when you get here, you've got no speed at all. That would be perfect. But my approach when I went to pick up Captain Shelby was I came in kind of like this, and I didn't want to hit her with the boat. So instead of coming straight at her like that, which is a little bit, what would you call it? A little bit too close for comfort, maybe. Instead, I came a little bit away and then turned so that the bow of the boat, the pointiest bit of the boat, didn't come any close to whacking Captain Shelby anywhere. And then there we are. That is the orthodox method. But like I said, if you are not too sure about jibing, perhaps because of the wind strength, what it means is you're going to have to sail much further so that you tack. And then as soon as you're out of the tack, you need to turn onto a broad reach and then come up. And in fact, that is the orthodox method for the man overboard recovery if you're sailing a mono hull, because the mono hull is much quicker to maneuver. You don't have to head up so high to tack, whereas on a catamaran, you do need to point your boat up into the wind to make the tack. The other thing that video highlighted was how useful the static 3-point turn is. So I would recommend, if your 3-point turns are not, it should be a maneuver that when it's windy, you can do every time, because it's kind of, I hate to say the word easy, but it is easy if you use the technique. Sheet in. When you sheet in, boat turns head to wind. Then as soon as you head to wind, sheet out, reverse the rudders, and then just keep looking at which way the boat's turning. When it stops turning, straighten up with the rudders, and the boat will start going forwards, bear away a little bit, sheet in, and off you go. There are several videos on the static 3-point turn, but if you really want me to make another one, you know I will do it. There we go. All right, so I hope that was useful. I think it's always good to talk about these safety points, because there might be one little aspect within all that lot that when you go out sailing and encounter this kind of man overboard situation, there might be one little aspect that you just heard that you go, all right, I'm going to do that. Yes. And that might have just made the difference between it working and it not working. There we go. All right, going to check in with everybody who's checking in the live chat. All right, we got Duke on board. Duke says, is it true that an F18 can't point as high as a tornado no matter what you do? To be honest, Duke and everybody else, I haven't raced on a mixed course, in a mixed fleet where there have been competitive tornadoes and F18s at the same time. So I can't reliably comment on that, but it would surprise me if the pointing angle of the tornado and the F18 isn't pretty similar, because the tornado is going to point quite nice and high because you've got a load of hull in the water. Granted, the centerboards aren't very big, the rudders aren't very big, but you've got a load of hull that sits below the water, which gives that kind of leeway prevention, helps with gaining height. Whereas the F18 just sits flat on top of the water, so there isn't so much to stop it sliding sideways, and you've just got the high aspect dagger boards, which perhaps, and the high aspect rudder, which I would think would give a similar amount of lift as that of a tornado, but can't say any clearer than that. I'd just like to give a big shout out to Hussein in Egypt, channel member Hussein, who has got the ball rolling with the super stickers. Yes, we're using super stickers these days in the live Q&A. This is the way that we can keep the live Q&A ad free. Don't make me start talking about the oily finger again, not like last week. But nobody likes ads apart from advertisers and probably Google. But so I don't put any advertising in the live Q&A, and you guys can support that movement. Let's call it a movement. You can support that movement by hitting the super sticker button and just making a small contribution to the cause of keeping the Q&A ad free. No oily finger on your might even be, if you're watching on the telly, on the TV, on the remote control. I suppose if you've got a remote control, then that's not, you probably haven't got dirty hands. You're probably not doing an oil change on your motorcycle anyway. All right, I'd like to say hello to Boris, channel member. Not I know who the channel members are because their names are in green. Greetings from Florida. Great to have you on board, Boris, and great to have you on board. Mike is with us. Hello, Mike. And Mike says, I recently looked at the Wildwind website, and it looks like you are the entertainment as well as Catamaran guru. Is this the case? Okay. Yeah, it is perhaps as far as the most of the YouTube viewers are concerned. They don't know about this hidden life that I keep secret. But yes, I am in the field of entertainment as well. I play songs and entertain crowds of people with music as well as Catamaran chat and stuff on the water and videos and that. So yes, it is true. And all right, we've got a new channel member. Woohoo! We've got HK Fui, which would be Hong Kong Fui, to those of you who remember. Thanks for joining the Joyrider Sailing Club Channel Members Association of Channel Members. Great to have you on board. What channel membership will get you, as well as being called a channel member when see you in the live chat, is early access to the upcoming videos. Yes. So, in fact, as soon as I have to remember to do this actually, but as soon as we finished here with the Q&A, I've got Sunday's video ready to go. So I will make that available to channel members immediately, because what we have to do is we have to have perks for channel members to make it seem like not only are you supporting Joyrider TV, but you are getting something a little bit extra in return. There we go. Can't say fairer than that, can I? Don't think so. All right, but thank you, HK Fui, for joining the club. The Earl of Porridge is on board in Berlin. Thank you for taking the topic. All right, nice one. Yeah, we have got, don't know which topic, but all the topics have been taken. All right. So, as I said, Hussein's on board with the super sticker. And Mike did preload a question, which is, I think Mike's question is the same in the live and the preloaded. Mike sails a Hobie 16 in the UK. And the Hobie Cat Centre in Poole is no longer the importer for Hobie in the UK. So Mike asks, where are the recommended Hobie spare part suppliers? The official Hobie Cat supplier in the UK is Windsport. That's Windsport. Windsport are based in, it's either Devon or Cornwall. Think it's Cornwall, on the south coast of Cornwall. And they should be your first, what would you call it? First place to look if you need spare parts for Hobie in the UK. If they're unable to supply, then I would suggest looking a bit further afield. But having not lived in the UK now for a bit, HK Fui says it's in Cornwall, in Mylar. Mylaw, not to be confused with Mylar, the popular sailcloth. Yeah, so having not lived in the UK for a bit, I don't know what it's like ordering things from mainland Europe. But if you can't get your spare parts from Windsport in Cornwall, I would start looking towards the suppliers in Holland and Germany. If you go on the Hobie dealers page, which you can just find if you just do a Google search, Hobie dealers, then it will come up with a whole network of all of the Hobie distributors, importers, and distributors around Europe. And then from there, you should be able to find the right person to supply the parts. All right, continuing in the live chat. Charlie Sailing is on board. Nice to have you in there, Charlie, and great to see you too. Hope to see you again soon. Yes, always a pleasure. I think this is Charlie who was helping on the Wildwind Beach whilst on holiday recently. Let me know if that is you, Charlie. I think you have changed your, if that is you, you've changed your user ID since, yep, says Charlie. Yeah, great to see you, Charlie. And hopefully you'll be able to do a longer spell working on the Wildwind Beach in the near future. Great stuff. All right, Boris says, how to flip the Catamaran to practice writing it. This is a good question, actually. I've never done it. Well, I've never been in wind strong enough to even lift a hull. Yes, what I would suggest, if you want to practice writing your capsized boat, is ideally do it in pretty light wind, or any wind actually, but if you can do it in fairly shallow water and have your boat somehow anchored at the front, this is going to make it much safer to do a test. Or if you happen to sail somewhere where there is some sort of safety cover which can help you in case you need help, strangely, because sometimes you might find that you haven't got, if the wind isn't strong enough, like in zero wind, to write a Hobie 16 from tests, you need 120 kilograms. That is what I've worked out with my weight plus the writing bag with 30 kilograms in it. But you might find that for some reason on your boat, you might need a bit more weight. And if you haven't got that much weight, you might not be able to bring it back upright. So it does take a little bit of finding out the specifics for your boat, because believe it or not, over the years, the quality and construction of the masts and the sails have changed, which means that certain vintages of boat are going to have a heavier rig. Perhaps the hulls are a different weight, which means that when you come to bring the boat upright, if you've got a heavier rig, that's more weight you've got to pull back up. All right, Boris says, I weigh 200 pounds, 6'2" in height. That is a good start. That's about, I think 200 pounds, about 90 kilos. So that's about the same as me. But more leverage, that is going to be helpful. Maybe let us know what you're sailing as well, Boris. Are you sailing default? The assumption, if you don't say what sort of boat you're sailing, is generally going towards the Hobie 16 because they are more widely used than any other type of catamaran, as we would know. But yeah, then to flip the boat over, let's say you have got sorry, it's a Hobie 16. All right, good guess. Yeah, so what I would do is, with the boat tied up to an anchor, or if you find a buoy or something, then what you can then do to get it to tip over, if it's anchored to a buoy, just make sure that the buoy that it's tied to is at the side of which way you're going to tip it over, because you don't want that buoy to be up in the air. You want that to be down, because otherwise it's not going to sit quite as nicely. And then to get the boat to tip over, this is you. Just stand to the side of the boat, grab both trapezes, and kind of use a bit of an abseiling motion and just kind of run and get as far away from the boat as possible. And you'll find that it doesn't take much to pick this hull up out of the water. And when that's coming up, you do need to be careful that you're not directly beneath the shroud, because if you get that come down on you, it might knock you over. And also, if you're capsizing your boat deliberately, especially in shallower water, really make sure that there aren't any other people about who would be within even 3 mast lengths of your boat, because when the mast comes down, it can come down pretty quickly. So you definitely don't want anybody anywhere near to that mast when it comes over. And then once the boat's on its side, wrong way. Once the boat's on its side, like here, there's your battens for reference, then you can start going through the motions of getting your righting line out. There's the righting line, letting the sails off, then get as low to the water as possible on the righting line. And then you'll see what you'll work out by doing this, if you're not using like a capsize righting bag, is you'll work out how much wind you need to bring a capsized boat back upright. The more wind that you have, the less weight you need to bring the boat up, because the wind gets under the sail and helps to flip it back up. So there we go. That would be what I would do. But if you're out sailing, especially, oh, you do have a righting bag, great stuff. If you're out sailing in open water and you want to deliberately capsize your boat, for any boat with relatively low volume, so again, this is good for the 16, is turn your boat pretty much head to wind, grab a trapeze, and just, it will be a little bit like the circuses in town, like a bit of a balancing act, but get right to the back of the hull, pulling on the trapeze, and you can actually pull the boat over backwards really easily on a boat with lower volume hulls. And it comes over really slowly and gently, which is definitely the best way to capsize your boat deliberately for a capsize drill. There you go, Boris. Hope that helps. Hope that helps everybody else as well. Okay, so we've got Peter on board. Hello, Peter. Peter in Sweden. Been a while. Even got out on the water last weekend. Great stuff. We got Benny on board. Benny also in Sweden, I believe. 16 knots now, but the boat is broken. Ah, gosh, yeah. That can be the way with certain boats. The harder you push it, the more time you have to spend repairing it. Yeah, it's just a painful part of the game that we're playing. All right, we got Ryan on board in Maui. How's it? Joyriders from the Pacific. Almost the weekend here. Time to fly the hull. Great stuff. And I believe Ryan has got his Nacra 500 rebuilt and ready to go. So good luck this weekend, Ryan, and hope to see the 500 on the speed stick. All right, Peter says, top tip for a righting line for two-man boat is to use an old main sheet tied to the mast in the middle, giving you 2 tails, 1 each. So you're not fighting over a single line. Yeah, that's nice to have twin righting lines, I think. Very good. Yeah, before I missed a trick, actually. Before Mike was saying about the shenanigans that go on in Wildwind sailing holidays here in Greece. And if you didn't know, if you didn't know, I've set up a fundraiser. What this fundraiser is for is to help with the progression of Joyrider TV. So it's a raffle where the prize is a holiday for 2 people for a week at Wildwind Sailing Holidays to do as much champagne sailing as you could possibly want to do. And all of the funds raised by the raffle are going to go towards taking Joyrider TV to the next level. So I've just pasted the what would you call it, URL, the website address for the raffle for the Wildwind holiday. There's actually 2 Wildwind holidays up for grabs. So if you want to get involved, buy a ticket, buy 5 tickets. Channel members, if you want to buy a ticket, look on the community tab on YouTube and you'll see I've put in there a special, code that you can use, which will get you extra tickets as well. So there we go. If you can't find that, just let me know and I will point you in the right direction. Okay. All right. Jens is on board. Hello, Jens. Jens is a regular visitor to Wildwind Sailing Holidays, and I'm pretty sure that Jens likes it. Very nice. Okay. I hope everyone's having a good time. So we're going to go dive back into the preloaded questions, and we're going to go to our lead topic. Lead you may think would mean the first one, but I think it is the most, almost like the biggest one. And this comes from Hannah's, who says it's quite a broad question. And I might have paraphrased it as well. How can you sail an F18 faster upwind in light and strong wind? Okay. Might think this is quite a big question, and a lot of this can be applied to other types of boat as well. So we're not we're not excluding other types of boat, but I'm just going to go through this at a reasonable pace. We're not going to dwell on it too long because there's quite a lot. There's my notes. All right, so first, boat setup. This is how we can first start to get more speed out of the boat, by making sure that it is set up correctly. Now, with F18s, there's three main vintages of boats, which are all slightly different in the setup and everything. So for the actual numbers of setting the boat up, like what your optimal mast rake is for the boat, what your spreader rake, all this rig tension, these things should be, you're much better off, basically, because I haven't done all of the research, and but you're better off just consulting the tuning guide, which each boat will have available on the internet. But here we go. We'll start off with the mast rake. So let's get I'm going to make a better F18. This is my upside down Dart 18, which, it's not a particularly good looking F18, but so mast rake, as we know, is the angle of the mast in relation to the boat. That would be a lot of mast rake, and that would be a little bit. So like I mentioned in a Q&A a few weeks ago, a great way of determining the mast rake is to use the measure app on your telephone. Can I do this reasonably quickly so it's not too painful? Yes, I can. All right. Using the level part on your phone. This is a much more modern way of doing it. And what you would do is, once you've got your rig set up with the rig tension on, it's a little bit of a dog chasing its tail kind of thing, because you have to set the mast rake, put the rig tension on, because otherwise you won't really know what the mast rake is. And then you put your measure app up against the mast to see what angle it is. But you may say, What if the boat isn't sitting dead flat? Well, then you put the measure app up against the transom of the boat, because the transom should be dead straight. And you subtract the number from the transom from the number of the mast rake, and that gives you your mast rake in degrees. Bit more scientific. All right, so the mast rake will be set according to your crew weight. More crew weight means more mast to the back, less crew weight, more mast upright. But again, your tuning guide will tell you what the numbers are. So that we're not, once we've set that, we're not going to change that for different wind strengths. That is set to the team who are going to be sailing the boat. The rig tension, the same. So with we use my loose gauge is out on the in the field in my toolbox, ready to oh, there we go. That's something I should have been aware of. Peter says the Tornado transom isn't vertical, so don't use that method on a Tornado unless, how about this, Peter, unless you can find out how many degrees off vertical it is, so then you know to make an extra calculation. What do you think of that, Peter, as a means of bringing the Tornado into the iPhone age when it comes to measuring mast rake? Surely that would do it. If the transom of a Tornado is like sloping at 2 degrees or something, there we go. Yeah, let's find out what that number is, and we could change the world. There we go. Let's do that. All right, rig tension. So on an older F18 like a Hobie Tiger, you'd be looking at a range between 24 on the loose gauge, which is quite a loose setting. Nice one, Duke. Duke just got his raffle tickets. Hope I would love to see you out here, Duke, but this raffle is definitely not unfortunately at all. It can't be rigged because I've used a third-party website who are organizing the raffle, and they absolutely randomly pick the winner. Of course, the only way to up your chances is buy more tickets. Yeah, so 24 would be the loosest, and that would be for something like a Hobie Tiger, a Nacra Inter 18, Dart Hawk, the first generation of F18s. 24 for heavy team, and then going up to 27 or 28 for a lightweight team. Then with the modern F18s, those numbers are much higher. So for a heavy team, you'd be looking at something like 28, 29 on the loose gauge for your rig tension, and that will go up to quite a lot. I wouldn't like to say, I was told 35, but I didn't believe it. And I think at the Nacra event when I was sailing the Evolution, we settled on 31 for our rig tension, and that was us with a combined weight of, I think, 165 kilos. Yeah, so rig tension, crew weight, then spreader rake. The spreader rake, I should really get another template magnet thing to do the spreader rake definition. If that's the mast looking down from the top, the spreaders sit on the mast like this around here. And then we've got the diamond wires that go on like this. And by the spreaders and the diamond wires, this is what puts a little bit of pre-bend into the mast. So spreader rake should be set according to, now this is a little bit loose for me, but on the Tornado, having spoken to Thanos from OS3 Sales, one of the leading sail makers for Tornadoes, he said your spreader rake should be set to what your sailmaker tells you to the cut of the mainsail. But what if your mainsail is kind of off the peg? Then check with the sailmaker to see if there is an optimal spreader rake for the sail that you have got for your boat. But what if you've got a boat, if you picked up a 20-year-old boat with the original sail, nobody's going to give you that information, which means the spreader rake should be something like between 45 and 55 millimeters on the spreaders. If you put a straight edge between the wires just above or below the spreaders, run it across like a batten, and then measure the distance between the back of the mast and that straight edge like that. Okay, so the spreader rake is set to the cut of the sail, but that would be the kind of range. Previously, I was under the impression that the spreader rake was again set for the weight of the team, which I think that will come into it a bit as well. If you've got more spreader rake, it's going to bend the mast more, making it more appropriate for a lighter team, because that'll make it easier to flatten the mainsail, taking power out of the rig, whereas less spreader rake is going to make it more appropriate for a heavier team who want more fullness in the sail and a bit more power. But no, we're doing it for the sail. All right, then the one thing we are going to change for the wind strength is the tension in the diamond wires. So we can change how much the mast is bent before we're introducing the sail to the mast. The numbers we were using on the Nacra Evolution were in really light winds. We'd set the diamond wire tension at 38. And then if the wind was going to be really strong, that would go up to 44, which for me, that felt like it was really tight, because on the Hobie Tiger, that's probably about, 5 more than we would use on the Tiger. So, but more tension for higher winds, because that's going to bend the mast more, which is immediately going to make the sail flatter. And then what that's going to do by having a bent mast, it's going to be kind of like bent backwards like that. By having a bent mast, it means it's easier to bend the mast more. So by having a mast that's easier to bend more, that means it's easier to pull the downhaul on, which means it's easier to flatten the sail off, making your boat an absolute weapon when it comes to heavy wind sailing upwind. There we go. All right. Hope everyone's enjoying this. I am. It's a good topic. All right. Battens. All right. So in light winds, all of the battens should be of an even stiffness. So the way to check your battens, in fact, I'm not sure if this works, but because the length of the batten will change, there'll be a relative stiffness. Shorter battens of the same flexibility. If I got something, yeah. So if I've got this, if this was longer, it'd feel much more bendy, but being shorter, much less bendy. So yeah, but you should be able to, if you were really going for it, you should be able to buy a set of battens which are all matched, so the stiffness of the battens is the same. I know not many people are going to pop out and buy a set of battens. It's expensive. So what we can do is we can alter the batten tension. And what we want to do with our batten tension, and this is a change to what I've been talking about previously, is previously, I was always talking about putting the battens into the pocket, pulling them tight enough so that they definitely can't move in the pocket, but that is enough. But now, if this is the floor, what we want to do, in fact, let's have another color, is when we tension the battens, we want to tension them enough so that it lifts at both ends. So both ends of the batten just come off the ground. So that's how much batten tension we're looking for through all of the sail. And we're trying to get them tensioned as close to being the same throughout all of the battens as possible. Okay. Now, the difference with the battens when it gets windy, let's have a mainsail. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1 like that. Or is it like that? Who knows? Can't remember. Yeah, it'd be like that. Of course it will. Yeah, so when it's windy, sorry, I hope you enjoyed me counting there. That's an added bonus feature for this week's Q&A. Is the top 3 battens. When it's windy, we're going to swap for much stiffer battens. So what that means is the profile of the sail there in the light winds with the soft battens is going to be a nice curve, loads of power to help with some drive to get the boat going in the lighter winds. But with stiff battens in there, it's going to be much straighter, which is going to give us the top of the sail. When we pull the downhaul on, it's going to be like a board, making the boat very fast and efficient in the strong winds. There we go. All right. So trim. Right. That's set up. Next, sailing the boat. Trim. Where do we sit on the boat? We're always going to both be sitting on the windward side, even in really light winds. On an F18 style boat, always both on the windward side. Why is this? It's because in light winds, we don't want the boat leaning slightly to leeward, because what that's going to do is sink one of the hulls down more drag from that hull, but also it's going to lean the rig over slightly, where even if it's our boat, even if it's only leaning over by that much, if you imagine how far the top of the mast has moved, just if the platform moves by a little bit, significant, we're going to be losing power. But also, we're staying on the windward side because on an F18 style boat, it doesn't take much until you can start going in and out off the trapeze in as little as like 6 or 7 knots of wind. And if you get that gust, you want to be able to harness it by getting out on the trapeze, pinning the boat down rather than having to depower. All right. Then forwards and backwards movements. What we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve is to have the tip of the bow in the water at all times. But what we don't want to do is lift the transom of the boat out of the water so that it's no longer touching the water. With the back part of the boat, we're just trying to unweight it slightly, but it still wants to be touching the water. So what this might mean is in light wind, your crew might be all the way up here. He might be going really quite far forwards on the windward bow and moving back more as the wind increases. So on a modern F18, on an older style F18, like a Tiger, we're just trying to get that rounded part of the hull to be in the water all the time. So here's the bow profile on a Tiger, and we're just trying to have the water this high up all the time, which shouldn't need to go quite as far forwards. Now, as the wind increases, we don't need to be as far forwards because we're going to be loading up that leeward hull more, which is naturally going to be putting more hull in the water. But one thing that we really need to be ready to do is what you could call mode change. So if you've been trapezing in a gust and the boat's driving nicely, the tip is definitely in, and then that gust subsides, and then you see the tip has come out, you need to be very quick to get forwards on the boat to keep it in, because if the tip comes out, it's going to start slapping on the water. We're going to drag the stern too much, and we're going to lose speed. And anybody who's not doing that is going to have a benefit, an advantage over us. So we need to react very quickly to changes in the wind strength. All right, nice. Okay, with our sideways, our balance, like we're both on the windward side, but one thing that I could pull myself up on is don't trapeze too early, because what we're trying to encourage is lifting a hull. So if we can get that windward hull out of the water, that is when the boat speed increases significantly. If you get out on the trapeze too soon and that hull is back in the water, then you're not going to have the benefit. All right, thanks very much to Ryan in Maui. Goal, he says, keeping the Q&A ad free with the super sticker. Okay, that's 2 out of 10, and we've got 8 minutes to go on the super stickers. So good luck on making this evening's target. Anyway, yes, allow the hull to lift. All right, then I'm just going to finish off with one last significant thing that we can do, which is really going to help our performance. And that is we're going to call it tacking the dagger boards. So if we look at the boat from the front, can we see that? Yes, we can. Looking at the boat from the front, the leeward dagger board we're going to have down because we want the leeward dagger board to be working for us, but there is no need to have the windward dagger board down as well. So we're going to have that lifted significantly, because all that dagger board is going to do is it's going to create more drag. It's going to create drag. How much do we want to lift it? We want to have it down enough so that it definitely plugs the hole. If you imagine at the bottom of the hull, you've got your dagger board case, and there's the whole dagger board case like that. And the part of the dagger board where it starts to curve inwards, we want to have that out of the bottom of the boat, because we need the straight section of dagger board to be effectively blocking the hole. Does this make sense? Because what we don't want to have is water getting up into the dagger board case, because that might start causing some sort of vacuum type effect, which might slow us down. And then on different types of boat, there is different preferences to how much the leeward dagger board would be down in different wind strengths. But again, for the specific boats, check the tuning guide for that. Okay, that is all I'm going to talk about on this for now, because we've been going for 55 minutes. Would you believe? And we need to crack on. We've got other preloaded questions would you believe? Jens is in with a super sticker. Thanks very much, Jens. Keeping the Q&A ad-free for those who don't want adverts in their Q&A. Thank you very much. All right, so I've got some from preloaded from Tim, who is he's, I think, becoming quite prolific in the what went wrong videos. He's sailing a 16, mostly solo on Falls Lake, North Carolina, USA. What Tim says is, I'm finding it difficult to really fly the hull. The boat goes fast and I need to get all of the way to the back to stop the leeward bow from digging into the water. The bow goes in before flying the hull. By the time I get the windward hull out of the water, the leeward bow is definitely digging in. All right. So if you find that your boat isn't lifting the hull, if it's a Hobie 16, what I would first look at is your rig tension. So if it won't fly the hull, I would put on more rig tension if you want to get that hull out of the water. That is my number one cure for that ailment that the boat won't lift the hull. If you're sailing a boat like the F18 and you can't lift the hull, and this is upwind or downwind, it might be that you haven't got enough leeward daggerboard down. If you put more leeward daggerboard down, it's going to give the boat more pressure to push against, which means there's more heeling force, which means you'll lift the hull a lot more quickly. And likewise, the other side of the coin is, if you find that your boat is lifting the hull really quickly and readily and like jumping out of the water, but perhaps you're not going very quickly, then do the opposite. So if you're sailing an F18 type boat, firstly, wind on some downhaul, but lift the daggerboard a little bit. It will make the boat less inclined to heel over quite as soon. And on the 16, when you get a gust, if you lift the hull really quickly, but you don't feel that the boat's going very fast, then again, just ease that rig tension off a bit and you'll find the sweet spot. When you find the sweet spot, put marks on your things that you are changing so that you can find it a lot easier the next time. If you are sailing a 16 and perhaps you've got the problem that Tim's got, then it might be that you've got quite a stretchy jib halyard. If you're not using either a very high quality rope or a rope thick enough for your jib halyard, it might be quite stretchy, which means when you sheet in, you're actually stretching the jib halyard, so you're not getting very much power. So you need to make sure that your rope either has a Dyneema core, or what I use on Bad Boy 95 custom is a 6mm high quality rope with a polyester core. Yes. A good one to look at is XL Pro from Marlow Ropes. There we go. Okay, so continuing, Jens says in the live chat, Q&A for Free as the Wind in Vasiliki. Why not? Let's do that. Don't quite know what you mean, but yes, let's do that. All right. Oh, and we've already answered Mike's question about suppliers in the UK. All right, and I've got one more question from Tim, and this is a real tough one, and perhaps people can jump in the live chat to help with this, or if you're watching later, put it in the comments. Tim was there was some people rigging a boat where Tim goes sailing, and Tim could see that they were struggling with it, and he could really easily just give them some advice and they'd stop struggling. They'd be able to do it straight away. But when Tim offered help, they were really unreceptive to any help. Like they felt it was insulting to be offered help. So how can you offer people help who are struggling when perhaps they don't want help? I think, yeah, it's a tough one, because if you can imagine, if I was in the boat park and I saw someone putting up a mast upside down or backwards or something, I would feel compelled to go and say something. But what is the right thing to say, which isn't going to wind people up? Perhaps, people who don't want help are quite likely to be having a bad day already. Perhaps it's a couple, perhaps on the drive to the lake, they had an argument. Perhaps they're not talking to each other, yet alone talking to anyone else. So difficult to break the ice if people are already in a negative mindset. But perhaps the way to break the ice is just to, before, when other people arrive, if they're rigging up next to you, you could just say, nice boat. Is that and just take a wild stab at what year you think it is. Oh, is that a 1982? Are those the boomer sails? Oh, nice. I've always wanted to see some of those in the flesh. Oh, I'm so glad that you made it, or something. Yeah, tricky. How do you break the ice? And a lot of the time they'll already be in the process of, I'm thinking putting the mast up is the example. You could just say, can I give you a hand? Not, rather than saying it's better if you do it like this, just say, can I give you a hand? Maybe that's the thing. Everybody likes a bit of help. Duke says, laugh out loud. Joe as marriage counsellor. Yeah, I think the divorce rate will not be doing well. Okay, Sunset Wingman is on board. Hello, Sunset Wingman. In general, you are find the people that tell you they already know or won't accept help will be behind you on the race course or can't even tack. Yeah, which is a shame that they won't accept help, because if you've helped them put the mast up, you could then say, so how much do you use your boat? Do you get out often on your boat? And they might say, no, we haven't done very much at all. And you could then say, oh, well, let me know if you get stuck on anything, because I've been sailing for a couple of years now and I've had difficulty when I first started, and tacking especially as an example. Let us know if you're not doing so well and we could talk about it later, and perhaps could save you that hardship of the frustration while you're having a bad day of not being able to tack. But your day surely is going to get better as soon as you get on the boat, leave the husband on shore, if you are the wife, or vice versa, of course, goes both ways, so I'm told. Anyway, I think that's about the size of it. So that's all of the preloaded. I'd just like to say hello to Bernard, who was just here last week for the windy week. I think it was for the windy week, the very windy week. That was a windy week. Oh no, it was the week after the really windy week. Anyway, there we are. I should stop. So thanks very much, everybody who's been watching live. Thanks for the super stickers, keeping the Q&A ad free. And yes, Sunday, new video coming up. Channel members, I'm going to get this set up in the next 5 minutes, so you'll be able to watch that immediately. So if you never a better time to become a channel member, great way of supporting Joyrider TV. The other great way of supporting Joyrider TV is to head over to totaljoyrider.com and get yourself, I think this is called a whole flying sunrise t-shirt or hoodie. Yeah, nice. Okay, see you soon with some more Windy Week Bernhard was here. Yes. Nice. More to come.